I'm gonna get like a migraine.
Do what now?
No, I'm gonna get a migraine.
Someone should volunteer their
Yeah.
sunglasses for you.
Nah, it's okay. I'll just like, I'll just have it like this.
No, you are.
They were in my pocket the whole time.
We'll all be snobby together.
This is the
This is the Hollywood channel.
Well, hello everyone. It's so great to meet you. My name is Isaiah Hernandez. I am the environmental educator behind the scenes of Green Jobs Board. I also run an independent climate media platform called Queer Brown Vegan. I've been doing full-time content creation as a storyteller since 2021. And to get started, we have industry experts from different fields of climate, media, art, storytelling. So really excited. So why don't we get started by doing a round of introductions of yourself and your work, but really how you got into climate storytelling and TV or entertainment that you're in today.
I can start. Hi everyone, I'm Laurel Tamayo. Also, I cannot see anyone. It's just like sunlight. But I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I work at the intersection of climate change and film and TV. And I got my start in this career because I watched a film called Racing Extinction in high school, which showed how humans were impacting species around the world. And that film motivated me to then do so much research about different environmental issues and climate change. And it made me want to make my own environmental films. And so I ended up majoring in environmental science and minoring in documentary film in college. And I ended up where I am now, which is I am the Impact Associate at Rare's Entertainment Lab, and I help writers integrate climate change and environmental stories into their scripted and unscripted film and TV shows. Outside of that, I'm also an independent filmmaker. I directed and produced Healing Lahaina, which was a documentary about the Lahaina wildfire, and I'll talk more about that later.
Yay! Woo! Hi everyone, my name is Suzie Hicks. I specialize in kids TV, and I work at the intersection of climate, education, and entertainment. So I got my start in college where I wasn't studying environmental science. I studied entertainment, but I randomly got an internship at the local aquarium and started teaching kids about the intersection between oceans and climate, and was like, this is amazing. This is art, this is entertainment, but it's also a really good cause, and it's helping increase the amount of literacy that could increase the amount of decision making in 5 to 10 years. So I followed that path. I have a kids show called Suzie Hicks, TheClimateChick. Oh my God, that's crazy. It's on YouTube Kids. We have new videos coming out for Earth Day. But I also work in a sustainability consulting space where I consult on kids shows, kids TV, kids movies, animated movies with Laurel at Netflix. And so I spend a lot of my time thinking about the ways that we could be telling stories better to kids. So thank you.
How much time do we have?
We'll keep it short and concise, but yes,
Okay,
go
all
into
right,
it. Go
enough.
into
I
it.
just want to know. My name is Blake Pickens. I'm an enrolled member of the Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma. I think they invited me here to do a land acknowledgement. So I'm a filmmaker and a comedian. I'm not being serious right now. But no, I think it's important to give context of careers in entertainment, because you start there's no defined path for anybody, right? I grew up on the south side of Oklahoma City, and if you know anything about the south side of any city, normally not the good side. And we were getting our windows shot out, had dirt on the floor, and we're plugging holes in the wall in the winter to keep snow and ice out. So entertainment was not a real career. I was going to be a plastic surgeon, so that was what I was initially doing. And I'd built a year in to go to prison because everybody in my family had gone to prison, so I thought I had to too. Didn't, that's thankfully. But for me, the way I got my start was taking all of those lived experiences, all that struggle, and learning how to hustle very, very hard. I had no connections, no anything like that, and I just grinded harder than anybody that I knew. I was if I do this, I just have to do it harder than anyone else, and if I don't, I don't have the same advantages. And since then, I've won an Emmy, I've won a VMA, I've produced 2 movies that have premiered at Sundance, I've written for Paw Patrol, I just booked Netflix as a joke. I've been doing all these cool things, but But my path was not like a traditional Hollywood path. It was very much that all sounds nice, but I like came out here. I produced my first movie, produced an album with Nas, and then I got $10,000 for that, and I had to come back to LA and start delivering groceries. So like entertainment's a rough path. It's very, very difficult, and I think that's important to like understand as we're talking about career paths.
Thank you. Non-traditional, 100%. If you want to be creative, non-traditional is the way to go. My name is Julio Salgado. I am an artist. If you've been to that side, I'm also here representing the Center for Cultural Power. I created that digital mural that, hopefully you've taken photos and written in there. But yeah, I more than anything, I'm an artist that writes about what is happening or creates around what's happening in our communities. I was undocumented for 30 years. I just got my green card in November. However, I don't know what it means to have a green card right now. Like it's being tested. But aside from that, I also run I'm the co-creator of the Disruptors Fellowship, which is a TV writing fellowship for folks who want to write for TV and who want to write, about not just climate, but like how do we talk about the intersectionalities of issues when it comes to trans rights, immigrant rights, disability rights, in a moment when they don't want us to tell their stories, right? In a moment where programs like ours become a target because people don't want us to talk about these things, right? And so I appreciate you talking about how this field as artists, it's really scary, but it's also really beautiful, y'all, because we get to use our creativity. We get to go to that mentality of being kids and actually think creatively of solutions. So that's a little bit about the work that I do, and thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think the life of the creative is like, right, you said, it's not the 9 to 5. It's something that's like up and down, and sometimes you have it and then it's like it's gone the next day. And Laurel, I wanted to ask you first, like, you work a full-time job and you produce your own documentary that really talked about your cultural history. And I kind of wanted to talk about like what was the process like to do a documentary film, to get investment into climate storytelling, and also like navigating your role.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So it's funny that we talked about how like it in a creative career, it's not traditional, but no one in my family had done a creative job before, and so they also didn't want me to work in environmental science. They're like, what kind of job can you get with that? And so film was even more so like, what? How are you gonna make a living? And so I feel like that was kind of drilled into me, where I was like, I need to have a full-time job so I can feel stable. And so while I was working in 2023, the Lahaina wildfire happened, and it took the home of my grandparents, aunt, uncle, and cousins. And it was the deadliest wildfire in modern U.S. history. And at that point, I had been working in climate for a few years, and a disaster like that was something that I was always like afraid of, but didn't know it would happen so soon. And so when it happened, I felt called to make a film about their story, because months later, it felt like the rest of the world had moved on. Meanwhile, I was hearing from them all of the struggles that they were still going through. And so I wanted to show an authentic portrayal of their experience. I also really wanted to make an impact with the film. And so Taya, Jeanette, and Maxfield Biggs, who are the ones filming today, were my producer and editor, and they were my rock through the whole thing. And we came up with impact goals of what we wanted to achieve with the film. And so the first was supporting Lahaina wildfire survivors. And so we have been able to raise more than $6,000 for Lahaina organizations. And then after the LA fires happened, we also raised money for an LA organization through our screenings. The second was reducing the stigma around mental health and disasters. And so we included mental health resources in our screening guide. We also held a healing event in LA after the fires. The third was encouraging climate resilience in the form of disaster preparedness. And so we actually had an event in the fall of 2024 where we screened our film and then had a disaster preparedness expert talk about packing a go bag And then a few months later, the LA fires happened, and we had people reaching out to us saying, I had a go bag ready when I had to evacuate because of your film. And so that's the kind of impact that we're trying to like continue to have, is just get more communities prepared. And that's just on an individual level. But then I also got invited to speak at the World Economic Forum's Urban Transformation Summit. And so I got to talk to chief resilience officers and people who work in insurance and urban planning to figure out how we can build more resilient communities on a bigger level. And so I think in terms of like balancing that, it was so important that I had such a strong crew that I could rely on, but also just like broader community. Like I crowdfunded half of the film, and like I relied so heavily on getting advice from people and getting donations from people. I mean, even Suzie got on a call with us to give us advice about crowdfunding. And like that meant so much to me to like be surrounded by generous people that wanted to share their knowledge. And so I think that really helped me as I was making this project that was like very emotionally heavy and difficult. I just felt very held by community, and also like couldn't have done it without my therapist. So shout out to Win. But yeah, and so I think there were a lot of things that helped me balance having a full-time job while also working on this film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the roles of storytellers is always like hard, having to navigate all the emotions of going through something in real life that's very traumatic, but also dealing with everything of creating art into the world. And this kind of goes into, Suzie, right? You are a fellow environmental educator, and you are the creator behind an impactful children's climate web show called TheClimateChick, TheClimateChick. And I wanted to ask you, like, how you really blended in climate science, theater, education, and also, like, what was the pathway for you to get there? Because it's something where, and even the career that you have now.
Yeah, thank you for that. Oh gosh, I mean, I think it's so important for us to respect children and to give them the opportunities to show us that they can be trusted with this information. And I just was so sick of seeing individual action being the only thing that kids could do. Because I grew up in the era of individual action and recycling, and I was neurotic about it, and I did everything. And like ExxonMobil still made record profits, and we're still in a genocide. And it's just all of these things are happening, even though my anxious little butt was doing everything that I could. And so I'm really interested in the intersection of like environmental justice and collective action for kids, because and I'm a huge PBS nerd. I work at the local PBS station alongside Netflix, and ever since I was graduating, I love whoever's doing the hands in the back. Thank you. Yes. When I graduated college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had just gotten a degree in entertainment, which was like mortifying. And I was like, oh no. So I was working at the local NPR station, and the Fred Rogers documentary came out. And so if anybody hasn't seen it, you definitely should. It's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's about the very profound legacy that Fred Rogers had on the world as someone who was loving and gentle and kind and quiet and like respected children's capabilities. And I've always really been interested in climate. It was like the great prompt of my life. I wrote my freshman undergrad thesis and my senior undergrad thesis about it. And I saw this documentary and was like, oh, wow, children's media really does have the opportunity to change the world. And there's another documentary called Street Gang, which is about the makings of Sesame Street. And Reverend Jesse Jackson goes on and talks to a group of children and says, beautiful children will grow up and make the whole world beautiful. And that is just kind of the thesis statement of the work that I do. And so my career has been completely circuitous and completely non-fruitful for so long. And now it's fruitful, but it wasn't for a really long time. But the thing that was really important for me to battle the imposter syndrome was like, I'm still gonna make this stuff even if no one cares. Even if no one watches it, even if everyone's like, you look stupid, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I came out to LA. I cold applied to an internship at PBS SoCal, which is the station that I've been working at for the last 7 years. They were like, "You're not eligible for this internship, but we have an event ambassador position. Do you want that?" And I was like, "Absolutely. I'm going to wedge my foot in this door so far that you'll never be able to close it." And then I worked at a restaurant to make money. And I was like, I really think I want to start teaching kids about climate science. And a girl that I went to college with, that I did theater with, was a preschool teacher and was like, "Why don't you come teach at this preschool 1 day a week and like workshop your ideas?" So I did. The woman that ran the preschool helped me write my first kids book. I'm actually going to her house after this to babysit her kids. And then the girl who got me that job is the puppet on my show. She voices Sprout, the puppet. And with the show, it was like, this doesn't exist. There isn't a show that's overtly about climate change for kids in a way that isn't like, oh God, we're all doomed, we're all gonna die. It didn't exist. And so I was like, what if it did? What if we did it? And so I made the proof of concept with like $1,000 and my friends in my backyard. And the it was like really shitty production quality, but it had enough heart to get into film festivals. And because it got into film festivals, other people started paying attention to me. And that's when it was like, oh, wait, is this something? I think this might be something. And now sitting here on this panel, I can tell you it is something. But it took a lot of just being like scrappy, which I think we learn both as climate people and entertainment people. Both of those careers will humble you, because you will not make any money and everybody's going to think you're annoying, and you have to just keep going even if no one cares who you are. And so, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I love that, Suzie. I think there's a sense of delusion that we all have in ourselves to be able to make it. You know, it's like, if I make it on Tubi, I did my job. But regardless, anywhere you get your work out there is very rewarding. Yeah, I love Tubi.
Tubi's not a sponsor, are they?
Yeah. I want to work at Tubi, Loki. You know, Blake, I wanted to ask you, right? Your career is also a multi-dimensional person. You're a comedian, you're a writer, you are a storyteller, and you know, can you share more about the creative pathway that you've had to do to be able to do it as an Indigenous storyteller, and how you also weaved in climate into, you know, non-traditional shows that aren't really focused on climate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I do everything from like a community mindset to begin with, and it's all informed by the way I grew up, right? I grew up in Oklahoma City. We were only there because that was the last stop on the Trail of Tears, and so we had to be there. But we were also there in a way where we were not like respected or valued, and our land was always taken from us. So like from very early on, we were like just fighting for basic things, basic rights, like clean water in America, in Oklahoma. And so everything from that has always informed what I do. So everything that I do has like a bit of like poking at stuff. I think it's important to tell a quick story to inform that. When I was growing up, my grandma told me this. She said, "Blake, you throw a lot of rocks at windows, and you know you're gonna break those windows, and the people inside are gonna hear you for a second, but they're gonna build thicker windows, and you're gonna need a bigger rock, and eventually that window's gonna be so thick that they'll never hear you, and that rock's gonna be so big that you'll never be able to lift it. But if you get inside and you throw a rock, it'll hit somebody in the face." So my family's very violent. But the idea being is like, if you can get in the room with someone, you can maybe change their heart, their mind, right? So comedy has been a way for me to do that, right? If I can talk to anybody about, and I can laugh, and we can do all this stuff, and then I can hit them with a little bit. Like, that was my career at National Lampoon, doing satire, which was like writing things that you otherwise might think a certain way about, but if I can make you laugh about it, maybe you'll reconsider it. It's like a very like small thing. But then through stand-up and all these things, I got an opportunity to write for kids television, which was weird because it was an executive in the crowd who heard the jokes that I did and still thought, hey, this guy might be able to write for kids. And anyway, I got to write on Rugrats, and then I got into like a big major property where there was like an opportunity to actually make real change, which is like the Paw Patrol universe. Big Paw is what I like to call it. And Rubble, this is going to be some deep lore. Rubble decided he was going to move out of Adventure Bay into Builder Cove, and he's going to build a whole new place with him and his family, right? So now here's an opportunity where we can start talking to people about sustainable ways to build, these sort of things. Thinking about it from the ground up, they're just building this city for the first time. But if you do that and you just say that out loud, sometimes it's kind of boring. And the kids are going to be like, like these dogs are fun because they like chase things down and like solve all these issues. So you do small things. I'm gonna wait for that. You do like small things, right? Like Rubble is building with stuff from a storm that fell down, and now, all this material's here. What are we gonna do with it? Oh, we're gonna build, because kids love building and these sort of things. So I think like everything that I've done has been informed by just like sneaking stuff in and not being so overt and yelling in people's faces. And I do think that, much like you found and like you believe as well, is like I can holler at an adult all day long, tell them whatever I want. They might move this much, right? But like kids are like, their heart's open, their mind's open. There's so much opportunity for them to maybe like grow up and be a good steward of the earth. So I don't know, if you talk to them really young, basically what I'm saying is write for Paw Patrol if you can do it. I suggest that. Yeah. Does that answer it mostly?
Yeah, I love it. Paw Patrol and a side of violence on the.
And I did pitch. Yeah, I did pitch that. I pitched that they should give Chase a body cam, and they said no. But what are you gonna do? Yeah.
We'll eventually get there. But Julio, I wanted to ask you, right? As an artist, you're a strategist, you're a storyteller, and you work at an amazing organization, fellowship. I kind of wanted to ask you, like, right, the world of artists are undervalued. And when people say, like, I want to work in a 9-to-5 working full-time in art, people laugh, or like people just like, yeah, right, whatever. I kind of want to ask you, like, why it's so important that we continue to build art, especially in the time of all the polycrises that we're existing, and how you feel that we can have a new generation of artists through the fellowship that you're developing.
Ooh, the big question. Money and artists, right? I do actually, I like to be realistic when especially younger folks ask me about like, how can I, make a living out of being an artist? And I'm just like, I'm gonna stop you right there. You have to, first of all, love what you do. And as it was mentioned, right, you have to do it like nobody's gonna listen to you. The moment that you're making art, for the money, that would be an ideal, way to live. But I make art for myself. I make that piece that you see in the wall there. The point, and that I actually created it with my colleague Crystal. Shout out Crystal. I don't know where she at.
Ooh,
yeah, Crystal. She's been there from the
there.
Center for Cultural Power. We wanted to make thank you, Crystal. We wanted to make a piece where people felt seen, right? Like me as an formerly undocumented, I still got to get used to that. Formerly undocumented artist. A lot of the times, didn't see myself in the climate spaces. However, in the immigrant community, there's so many talks about solutions, but they're not as open. Like they're not on a billboard, right? Last year, Crystal and I did a workshop with immigrant mothers, and we were talking about climate solutions, and they were like, "Well, we have to take the bus because we don't have access to driver's license. We have to go to the laundromat because there's no laundry in our building," right? So a lot of the solutions are already in our communities. And as artists, I'm like, I want to make sure that those stories get seen, whether it's in a piece of artwork or in a piece of, or I do a monthly comic strip called Good Immigrant, Bad Immigrant for the LA Times. And it's those stories that a lot of the times don't get seen. So I create out of like, not, when the voices are really loud, it's on purpose. They're scaring us on purpose, so that, because there are the solutions in our community, right? And so, as we're thinking when opportunities come up, and the reason why we created the writing fellowship, the Disruptors, which is coming back on May 1st. We haven't announced it yet, but May 4th, the Disruptors Fellowship is coming back, and the purpose of the fellowship is that we connect fellows with people writing in Hollywood so that they learn about the ins and outs and how it's really not that easy. However, if you have the passion to tell a story, you have to, get ready. And so preparedness is the way for us to, have a fellowship like the Disruptors. And so, it's really about wanting the desire of telling that story, despite the fact that people are telling you to be quiet. And let me tell you, my lawyer, as we were getting ready for our immigration process, and my husband, was like, do you have to post that? And I'm like, I this is what I do. I can't let someone tell me that I can't speak my truth, even if it does get me in trouble. And the reason why I do that is because I'm in community. All of y'all are here. So if you ever see Julio Salgado, it's in deportation proceedings, I know you are going to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And so in order for us to be artists that freely create, you have to be in community. There's this idea that as artists, we like to do our things, independently, but I cannot create, independently. That's why I love a writer's room, because you have to work with other people. And it's the same thing, as being in a community, right? You need your community to have your back, because we are in some horrible times, but I know that we have the solution. So just putting it out there. Make sure that if anything happens, that we have each other's back. So creative.
I love that. And I know that we are short on time, but I think that the main takeaways around this is the path to be able to do stories is always accessible, right? We can start at home, you could start in your paper, you could start at an org, institution, whatever you may do, and it doesn't need to look like a linear path. And just know that the life of an artist is always going to be up and down, and a lot of whimsical adventures that you'll have. So we're going to close it on here, but if you want to talk to our panelists, they'll be in the back. So please connect with them and ask them about any questions you may have. So thank you so much again, everyone.
Make art.
Make art.
Yeah, if you can. Maybe.
And stick around for our stick around for our final session. We are starting it in about a minute or two.